to a brand new episode of the Moran Show. Spotty start right there. My Wi-Fi is not the best, but we're still going to try to soldier through this show. I hope that all you guys had a Merry Christmas. This Christmas couldn't have been much better. Outside of the Chiefs losing, we had the Eagles in a tight, close game with the Giants. And then Monday Night Football, 49ers and Ravens. I mean, who could have expected the outcome that we saw? It felt like the football gods collectively came together and they said, we're going to make things right in the football world. We're going to get Purdy out of the MVP odds-on favorite race. But my, oh my, it's going to be a great show. I'm going to talk about the 49ers and the Ravens, the Chiefs' offensive struggles, and rank the top NFC AFC teams and do some other takeaways from week 16. And joining me is Mr. Andrew Velez and John Tortorelli. How you doing, guys?
Doing great.
I'm doing pretty great. Can't complain. Merry Christmas to everyone. Appreciate you guys tuning in to the Joel Moran Show. My first appearance on the show. I'm honored. I'm flattered. But let's talk about some football because we watched some great things happen today. And I know you said, aside from the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, that was the highlight of my night. I could not have loved that anymore. But I'm excited to chop it up with you, gentlemen. Hope you guys had a great Merry Christmas.
How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. You know, this was an awesome week of football. It re-energized me. Mason Rudolph saved Christmas, and altogether it was nice today to watch what I felt like was a fun, even if it was slightly disappointing, Sunday night game.
You know, John, this is usually what happens. You know, I talk, somebody else speaks, and then you speak. This happens way too often, John. You've been on the show too much.
Bro has no idea how a merry-go-round goes. And that's unfortunate, John. You're too versed in this game to not know what time it is. All right, but let me say, your Steelers, well done. Great W. And my Denver Broncos, man. It's not a great time for Broncos country. But hey, a little silver lining. Kansas City lost too, so we're here.
You needed the Chiefs' loss to make up for the Broncos' loss to the
Lord
Patriots. I mean, how embarrassing was that? But you know what? It couldn't have been more embarrassing than the butt whooping that the 49ers took tonight. They lost to the Ravens 33-19. And the game gave me some energy. I was watching it and I said, oh my goodness, I have to record tonight. I have to go live. I have to talk about this because one of my main takeaways in the first half was, I mean, only the 49ers can have 3 turnovers in the first half and only be down by 1 point. In order to beat this type of team, you have to really dominate. The second half, it got away from them, but just this game as a whole, what were your main takeaways from it watching? I'll start with you, Drew.
The issue with the Niners is that when Trent Williams is not on the field, this is a JV offensive line. It's not that good. You saw when Trent got out of there, they were getting a ton of pressure on Purdy. And then when Purdy was taken out of the game due to injury, then we saw Sam get pressured the same in that last drive too. But at the same time, I mean, Purdy's just got to be a little bit smarter, make his quick reads, get the ball out a little bit quicker, especially when he knows the pressure is going to be on. The Baltimore Ravens are the best team at getting to the quarterback. That was to be expected coming in. And then you lose Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the game, makes this offensive line looks competent. That's just how much of a dominant force he is on that side of the field. So to lose him, and then, of course, just to have the turnovers, Brock Purdy have his worst game of the season. You mentioned it early on. Get him out of the conversation. You too, John, say, hey, Brock Purdy, after this game, we're not talking about him in the MVP conversation. And that seems fair. And I tweeted this, and it's true. With every interception we saw Brock Purdy throw today, it just made Tua for MVP more and more realistic. Now, another guy that needs to be in that conversation has got to be the guy who won tonight's game, Lamar Jackson, 252 yards, got his way on the ground as well, played a clean football game, 2 passing touchdowns, seemed to just play a pretty sound game. My main takeaway from this, though, has to be if Trent is not on the field, I cannot feel great that this offensive line for the San Francisco 49ers is going to be able to hold up against one of the top end pass rushes. I still believe in the San Francisco 49ers. This is a great, talented team, but Purdy still needs to be able to make his quick reads and be able to when push comes to shove, be able to step up, because that's been your main criticism. And that's been pretty fair when he's in situations that we haven't seen him in often, where he needs to fight back from behind. Is he going to be able to do so? Without Trent Williams, you can't feel confident in that. So this was a tough game. It is also unfortunate that he is going up against the Baltimore Ravens. We could be looking at tonight's game as a potential Super Bowl preview, and it was extremely one-sided for the Baltimore Ravens in that regard. Last thing I'll say on it, hope Kyle Hamilton is okay. Has been playing some insane football this season. You could argue he's been the best safety this season. He's been playing that great of football. Had 2 INTs in today's game. But really, I look at it in the perspective of, we respect the Baltimore Ravens. We know that the Baltimore Ravens are one of, if not the best teams in the AFC. But when you look at the Niners, we had that anticipation that this was the team in the NFC to be. I still believe that firmly, that that is the team that's going to represent the NFC. But at the same time, you need Trent Williams in there. And when Brock Purdy needs to, I need to see him step up in these moments. And today was one of those where he unfortunately failed the test.
This was a pretty wild game to me because all year long, it felt like the 49ers played completely carefree football. And to see the Ravens, a team that leads the NFL in sacks, get pressure, as Drew alluded to, 5 interceptions on the day. The talking point is Trent Williams, because this game felt a lot like the 49ers lost to the Browns earlier in the year. You lose Trent, and the offense really can't, in the drop-back passing game, consistently win and get enough time for Purdy in the pocket. When he's trying to extend, he's got 2 or 3 pass rushers. And my main takeaway is that this Baltimore Raven team is serious all year long. As a Steeler fan that knows they can't beat Pittsburgh, Lamar's 1-3 versus them, I've always found reasons to demerit Baltimore. They can't beat this team. They haven't done it in the postseason. But the thing is, this is the first time in 3 years Lamar Jackson has been healthy in December. Last 2 years, finished just 1 game. The offense, as you guys alluded to, has played pretty darn well. Guys stepping up like Isaiah Likely, Gus Edwards in the receiving game. Zay Flowers, a huge game today. But the defense does one thing very well. It's that they limit explosive plays after the catch. You look at San Francisco, it's one of the best weapon groups I've ever seen because they've got Debo. He had himself that ridiculous 3rd down. I don't know how he got that conversion. And then Brandon Ayuk as well. Ayuk didn't really get going, it felt like, until the second half when Sam Darnold came in. If Baltimore is the best possible team at stopping players after the catch, they have the best quarterback in every single matchup minus Kansas City and, of course, Buffalo. And they've got one of the more diverse and open-minded head coaches and coaching staffs. They feel a lot like the Eagles last year. The coaching, the ways in which they can win through the run, through the air. And I'm ready to say that this is the favorite to come out the AFC, and that's obvious. That should be known after today's statement victory. They're the best team in the NFL right now with 12 wins.
I think that's all sound. We got to just talk about the Ravens first, because I think their defense made a statement tonight. Their defense in previous games, they have gotten. We saw the game versus the Rams where the Rams had a great offensive game plan for what they do. But the chess piece in this defense is Kyle Hamilton. And the way they're able to move him and align him with other offensive players. I mean, today he was mostly aligned with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, there are not many safeties that can do that. And when you have Kyle Hamilton playing that close to the line, one, he's 6'4" and he disrupts a ton of passing lanes. But then you have Geno Stone and Marcus Williams behind him. You have at the second level Roquan Smith defending that area, and they have a ton of great corners. And then on the interior of the defensive line, and this is the major weakness with the Niners, because even with Trent Williams being in the game, the Ravens were still giving it to them defensively.
No
Justin Matabuki is a star. He should be a Pro Bowler, and he's somebody that disrupted this game. He disrupted the interior of that offensive line for the Niners, and the Ravens defense deserves all the credit in the world. And I think this is what kind of separates this team from years past. I think, for one, when the Ravens have won 14 games and have been the 1 seed in previous years, there was kind of always a lack of offensive explosiveness. I don't think that Lamar was the most refined pocket passer at that time, but now he's just completely gotten better. He's evolved as a player. He still has that rushing ability, but how he can maneuver in the pocket, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. There aren't many guys playing better than him. The only one is probably Josh Allen, and I think Lamar's probably number 2. So I think this Ravens defense, this Ravens team as a whole, for me, I feel much more confident in them as a team that can actually have playoff success, not only because they're a great team, but I look at the AFC landscape and there isn't one team that particularly jumps out to me that I think matches up with them particularly well. So I think the defense has to give a
Come
huge
on.
shout out, has to get a huge shout out. You know, this is the thing about Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy's playing well. He's an amazing story. Last pick in the draft. I think what he's done to this point is that he has been exceptional in his role. But sometimes when you're exceptional in your role, people like to overvalue your impact in that given role. This game was so important to the evaluation of Brock Purdy because there aren't many times this season where defenses can figure out everything the Niners do, where they can stop the run game. And if they stop the run game, they can't stop throws to the middle of the field. They can't stop Ayuk or Debo or the motion or George Kittle. When you stop most of that, like the Ravens did tonight, how does Brock Purdy look within that environment if you take away two of his major keys to success on the offense? And I felt like this game was a perfect example of that because he did not play well. You know, you could argue the first interception was bad. You know, I thought it was a nice gamble from him, but Kyle Hamilton just made a great play.
Definitely.
Still, Purdy, you know, not the best decision, but I'm not going to knock him too much for it. The other two tip passes, you want to call those unlucky, you can. I'm not going to argue with you. The last one was really bad. It was just an inaccurate throw. And the thing about Brock Purdy is that this year his off-target percentage ranks 8th in the NFL. Brock Purdy is amongst the league leaders in turnover-worthy percentage plays. A lot of his reckless play gets masked within this offense. And the analogy I'll give to it is, you know, you ever had a Boston cream donut? I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I like the chocolate and I like the donut. I like the breading. When I eat the bread and I eat the chocolate, I say, this is good. But once I bite it and I get that cream in my mouth, I don't like it that much.
I
really don't like it. I don't like that Boston cream donut. And that's kind of how I compare Brock Purdy to, is that, you know, the first two layers, when everything's going right, it tastes really good. But once you get deeper into his game and you start revealing the layers of this offense, you start stopping this. Brock Purdy is an average quarterback, and we saw the difference between Lamar and we saw the difference between Purdy. Okay. Lamar did not have a running game in this one. CMC still managed to run for 100 in this one. Lamar had to create plays out of structure consistently. He was getting rushed at a high rate as well, but he's able to make those plays and go above and beyond the offense. And I think to this point, you can say Brock's been a great system quarterback. He's been great at running the system. But when he's been called to go above and beyond, is he able to do it? I still think the jury's really out on that, because when you turn him into a straight drop back passer, you're not motioning as much. You don't have the threat of the run. How much of a threat is Brock Purdy? And I think this game kind of revealed it. You know, it's to this point, not much of a threat.
That was one of the craziest analogies I've ever heard.
And listen, some may take that you calling Brock Purdy a Boston cream donut is you calling him the GOAT. Some could say the Boston cream donut is the greatest donut that there is. And I'll say this, Joel. Today was not a great day for Brock Purdy and Brock Purdy supporters, but I'm not gonna overreact to this one where, yes, this was the best defense that he was gonna face. On top of it, yes, he did have his worst statistical game. But at the same time, he's shown me a lot so far this season. And I'm not the type of guy that I'm going to watch a game. And I've been very consistent on the point of turnovers are not valued the same. All turnovers are not equal, with the idea, yes, some turnovers are bad, like we saw today, that last interception from Purdy. Like you said, you could argue that first one, Kyle Hamilton just made a great break on the ball. But again, I'm fine with a quarterback being confident enough and trusting himself to let the ball downfield. The tip passes today are different, but in the grand scheme of things, where you say that he has some of the highest turnover percentage of turnover worthy plays, in the league. To me, we've seen MVP candidates. We've seen people go on and win the Super Bowl with being near the top of the turnover list. So I'm not stressing it too much. I still think you want your quarterback to be confident. You want your quarterback to push the ball downfield. And in this situation where Brock fell short, you want him to rise up two big moments. But like you mentioned, coming into the second half, this was what, a 2-point game?
16-12, I believe.
So a 4-point game. So to me, I mean, where he played a horrendous first half, it just could have taken a great, just a solid second one to put it all together. It was just you turned over the ball a little bit too much. And of course, when you're playing against an elite team like the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to make you pay for your mistakes. You just got to be better in that regard next time when you face this situation. So I'm not going to overreact to this one too much. Just make sure you clean up your donut analogy next time. Because again, Boston cream, that could be at the top tier, man.
Boston cream. Listen, I like the open hole donuts that I could just slide in my finger and just I like the open hole donuts more.
I understand where you're coming from.
Drew, I would agree with you, but the thing is that this wasn't really a game that Brock Purdy had to necessarily carry anything, because even with the 3 turnovers in the first half, they were down 16-12 heading into the second half. I mean, the playbook was as open as can be for the Niners. They were running the ball. They were in the early second half. They were throwing screens to get Brock Purdy going a little bit. I think his confidence was kind of a little shot in this game. He did not play the same. And, you can make that argument that is valid, but I think it is a concern that, what was the major knock with Jimmy Garoppolo? It's that when you're trailing in games and you need him to make plays, he wasn't capable of making it. And I think Brock Purdy has a little bit more than Jimmy G. I should say a lot more, because I'm not that high on Jimmy. But can it still hold the same? Is Brock Purdy, given his stats, people want to put him as the MVP. After this game, it's done. But before this game, people wanted to put him as the MVP. So is he an MVP caliber player, or is he more like a Derek Carr, somebody that, they can be great within a system, they can have some great seasons, but when you need to really have it, do you trust the quarterback that much? And I think the jury is still very out on Brock Purdy when it comes to that.
You can say that. Brock Purdy has been a difference maker all year long. And it's 3 big interception-worthy games where he's had multiple turnovers against the Vikings defense, the Bengals, and in this game. I felt like this game was a bit of an outlier. And you can't judge Brock Purdy specifically off this matchup, because Baltimore's defense all year long has made it tougher on teams. Now, you got a great point. George Kittle played fantastic today, and he did not have to make a lot of explosive plays down the field because it was a one-score game the entire time. But ultimately, we understand the one thing that matters more than anything else is that Trent Williams is healthy. The same way on the other side, the one thing for the Ravens that really matters is if Kyle Hamilton's healthy, because those guys are linchpins on 2 of the most important units. If the Ravens don't have an elite defense, that's going to change the entire dynamic of that team. I mean, we saw them, the 49ers, come back in this game a little bit. We've seen moments, your Dolphins, Drew, they make that big second half comeback last year early in the season. The Ravens need Kyle Hamilton. I think the same could be said for San Francisco. If you have Trent Williams, that can help mask the rest of the offensive line, though it is a deficiency. That, to me, is really the main takeaway. It has to be.
Did Brock 100% lose the MVP with this performance?
Yes, not
There's no coming back.
No. He never should have been, to be real with you guys. I think he should have been on the long list, maybe top 3 or 4, but you cannot tell me he was MVP or Josh Allen or Dak Prescott personally, even Lamar.
So, I know, Drew, I know who your top 3 MVP candidates are probably going to be, or I should say top 2. So why don't you just go ahead and say it, because I know what it is.
You got to go top 2. We got to throw Lamar Jackson in this conversation. The Ravens have some of the biggest wins on the season. Yeah, they've had a little slip up against some of the teams that they shouldn't have lost to. Colts early on in the season come to mind. Pittsburgh's another one that they definitely should have won. They kind of gave that game away to the Steelers. But when they've played some of the best competition on their schedule, they've played up to their talent, and they've been able to come away with W's. So you got to have Lamar Jackson in this conversation. But I'll be damned if you don't mention the tribal chief Uno, Tua Tagovailoa. And we're talking about leading the league in yards, top 6 in touchdown, number 1 in completion percentage, and coming off his biggest win of the season, the Miami Dolphins' first win over a team over 500 when they did face. But this is a team coming from one of my co-hosts, one of my dear friends, that told me that team was going to the Super Bowl. So if you can beat a Super Bowl caliber team, That's impressive enough to me. And then, of course, now you have the real competition next week, Ravens, Miami, for not just the number 1 seed, but also could be talking about the MVP winner. But that also could come down to the last week of the season between Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa, because Josh definitely needs to be in this one. I think that if he puts his team in position to win the East, he definitely should be the MVP. But as of right now, you're telling me Tua is the number 1 seed. You're telling me Tua wins his division. You're telling me Tua is going to be number 1 in yards, number 1 in completion percentage, top 5 in touchdowns. Hey, got to give it to the tribal chief.
I know that it's so close for you. It's so close for it coming to a reality. But the truth is that it feels so close, but yet it's so far.
Respect them.
We know.
Throw your ones up.
We know what's gonna happen. Now,
if I'm winning against a good team, no, I'm playing.
If I'm giving my top 3 MVP candidates, number 1 got to be Lamar Jackson. After the performance he just had against the 49ers, against the MVP favorite in Brock Purdy, I mean, it got to be Lamar Jackson number 1 right now. And the Ravens are the first seed in the AFC. Number 2, I'm going to go wild card. I'm going with Mr. Josh Allen. That's Bills are on a bit of a win streak. Josh Allen has the most total touchdowns in the NFL. He's played phenomenally this season. And number 3 is not going to be your boy Tua. It's going to be Mr. Christian McCaffrey. I mean, even in a loss versus the Ravens, he still had a touchdown. He still rushed for over 100 yards. I mean, he was not the reason they lost. He played great tonight. So I'm still going to have Christian McCaffrey at number 3. No doubt about it.
Unbelievable. Guys, a position player, John. John, you who knows – who you don't even like Tua like that. You told me that Ryan Tannehill was comparable. Jesus.
No, I didn't.
You're going to sit here and tell me you're going to sit here and tell me that CMC is more valuable to his team than Tua Tagovailoa is to the Miami Dolphins. Do not do that. Do not.
Christian McCaffrey's had a more impressive season to me, maybe I would say. So my list would be Christian McCaffrey at number 3 as well. I mean, what he's done this year. Today he had 14 carries over 100 yards. He is deserving of being in the top 3. I've got Tua, Drew, right outside. I think him and Brock Purdy are both top 5. But to me, I have to take the clearly better player who long-term has sustained the success. Josh Allen's been in the MVP race twice now, but the reasons why he didn't win, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, I felt like this season with 40 touchdowns, overcoming all the Bills have, with the lowest sack rate in the NFL, he's had a fantastic year altogether. A couple of rough patches, I think he's number 2. But Lamar Jackson would be the MVP after this game, after all the Ravens have lost. They lose their starting running back. They lose their second running back. A couple weeks ago, they lost their number 1 tight end. And still a Todd Monken in this offense has, I think the adjective people have used, or I guess the character, would be a chameleon. They've evolved. Lamar Jackson has shown up big time. And he had one big run today, the pocket presence, the sixth sense awareness to extend plays in the ground while still being able to show teams I can win consistently from the pocket. Lamar Jackson set a pretty damn high bar in 2019. And I think right now he's got a good chance of gaining a second MVP trophy.
You really think, Drew, that after what we just seen the Ravens do to the 49ers offense, that when they're back at home, they're not going to dismantle those Dolphins, who, by the way, they beat the Cowboys by 1 point, sure. Good win, whatever. No Tyron Smith. No Tyron Smith. It took Tyron Smith not playing for the Dolphins to really get this W.
Interesting. You're going to mention Tyron Smith, but we're not going to talk about the injured offensive line that Tua had to play with. You're going to tell me how Jalen Waddle wasn't in and out of the lineup.
Jalen Waddle is going to be out most likely for the season. So,
like I said, you're going to mention how Jalen Waddle's not going to be in the game, but at the same time, the offense was still able to click. Tua was still able to get going, put his team in position to win the game ultimately. I mean, listen, you could talk about Dallas and their injuries on their side, fine, but let's talk about Miami's too. And also, let's talk about what happened last time that we saw Tua go into Baltimore. Tell me what happened. I think you know what happened. It's the infamous Tua comeback from behind. 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter? Game-winning touchdown on Baltimore in Baltimore? I think that Tua and the Miami Dolphins remember that pretty vividly, and I'm sure you do too. So, again, I'm okay. The defensive line may be a problem on Miami's front, for sure. Okay. I'd be a little bit nervous too, but the way that we just seen Tua the last 2 weeks be methodical, get the ball out quickly, I have no concerns. I was not worried about Dallas. Here I am going into Baltimore. A little bit more worried, I would say, because I respect the Ravens a little bit more than I do Dallas Cowboys. But at the same time, Miami's been rolling. I got to go with the boys over there.
I do think the thing with Tua, Joel, he hasn't had an interception over a month now. And that's the biggest question because Drew likes to label it. He's a confident passer. I feel like Tua's downfall will be the interception-worthy plays where he puts the ball in harm's way, just like Josh Allen too. A lot of quarterbacks are going to have that. But if he's taking good care of the football, you'll be okay with him only having 1 or 2 touchdowns because he's doing a much better job just managing the flow of the game. That's not calling him a game manager, by the way.
Here's what's going to happen, and this is
careful, John.
Dolphin fans are going to be upset with me.
I've been beating the drum, and this is what's going to happen, Mr. Drew.
Okay.
They're going to lose week 17. The Ravens will secure the number 1 seed. And week 18, they will rest their starters because they will have the bye secured. Week 18, when the Bills face the Dolphins on the road for the AFC East crown, the Bills will win that game. Let's just be honest. Lamar will secure the MVP after next week. That's just what's going to happen.
Oh, Lord have mercy. The funny thing about that is the Bills almost just blew it to the Chargers. The Chargers. Get that through your head. The Los Angeles Chargers, who have been one of the worst defenses in football. You could argue, right? Oh, last couple of weeks, sure. They just gave up 63 points to the Las Vegas Raiders. And you struggled with the Chargers? You're going to tell me that at home, Miami, who's only lost 1 game all season, is going to be the underdog in that situation? I'm not worried.
They struggled with a team that just got 63 points put on them and fired their coach. They're going to come out a little bit different, Mr. Drew. They're going to come out a little bit different.
That's a little embarrassing to me also. But, hey, Josh Allen's a superhero. I won't say anything negative on his name. He's been awesome. You guys having him in your MVP discussion is 1,000% okay. He would be number 3 on my list right now for the sole reason of I still think that the Dolphins and Tua will win the AFC East, and they will go and win and have the number 1 seed in the AFC, which will bode better for my guy Uno. But you have to have Josh in these conversations. He's not someone that I look at and think, hey, he can't beat Miami because he's been that good, and he's shown situations where just him playing superhero ball can lead to the Bills playing winning football. End of the day, I think the Dolphins clean sweep these last 3 games, and these were 3 games that people asked them to come out and win. They already got 1 down. Number 2 is right now this upcoming week versus Baltimore. And then that finale, week 18, will be the cherry on top. But, hey, show some respect to the tribal chief.
Now, Lamar Jackson being the MVP right now is a great feel-good story. Not only has he deserved it, but I think he's earned it. And the reason why I say it's a feel-good story is because he's about to become the first quarterback ever to throw for 3,700 passing yards, over 900 rushing yards in a season. That's going to be him. The Ravens are the first seed in the AFC. But I think what makes this story even better is that in the offseason, when there was clearly friction between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson on a contract. One, we got to give some blame to the Ravens for not just opening up the blank checkbook for him to sign, because that's what he deserved. But when he requested out of Baltimore, when he wanted to be traded, I mean, it felt like report after report, team after team just voiced their disinterest for wanting to land Lamar, whether it was the Falcons, the Commanders. The Falcons decided to ride out with Desmond Ridder. He's been benched multiple times this year. The Commanders decided to ride out with Sam Howell. He just got benched. John just mentioned the Saints. The Saints signed Derek Carr to a huge contract, and he's been underwhelming. I think this was a slap in the face to all those teams with how well Lamar Jackson is playing this year, on his way to his second MVP. And all those teams are regretting the decision. And I know there's going to be some people that are defending those teams, but the truth of the matter is that every team had an opportunity to go out and to at least try to offer a trade package for Lamar Jackson. And they did not. And all those teams you see that refuse to do so are right now in a place with their quarterback that they don't want to be in. So I think Lamar Jackson, not only has he earned the MVP with his performance this season, but I think the fact that the league missed so much on Lamar in the offseason, it felt like they were actively colluding against him. I just like this story for Lamar Jackson as a whole. It's a full circle moment. And honestly, there's a narrative around Lamar that existed around the league in the offseason that I felt like should never existed in the first place.
Interesting, because people in the comment section were telling you to address your "Come on, Lamar" allegations. So, are we here to nip that in the bud? He's clean. You trust him 100%. No issues with Lamar Jackson going forward, Mr. Moran.
This is the moment.
For the first part, let me just make this clear. Kamal Lamar was something I said last year. It was last year. Let's just make that
Ah,
crystal clear as some sunglasses that fit your eyesight.
okay.
Number two, before the season started, I said Lamar was going to have his best passing season of his career. I've raved about how underrated of a passer Lamar Jackson is. If you want me to apologize for past comments on Kamal Lamar, I will apologize. And I say he might have not deserved it 100%. But don't act like coming into this season, I had those doubts on Lamar Jackson. I had the Ravens this year as an 11-6 team. And the only reason I didn't have them higher was because I thought they might have suffered some injuries because that's what they've suffered in the past. But 11-6 to me was their floor as a team. And I thought that Lamar Jackson would have his best passing season of his career. So let's just get that straight. To answer your question about trusting Lamar Jackson, yeah, I trust Lamar Jackson. I trust the Baltimore Ravens, and I think they're the best team in the AFC. There's no other team that I think can match up with them from a firepower perspective and just an experience perspective that has the same talent. I think the Chiefs right now lack talent on the offensive side of the ball. The Bills right now, they're intriguing, they're fun, but I don't know if I want to hop on that ride. It feels like a rough and bumpy ride. I know that week 18, they'll hand it to the Dolphins.
Okay.
But
you said that about
it's
Dallas.
a rough and bumpy ride with the Bills. The Ravens feel like the smoothest ride. It feels like an electric car. It's going to get me to my destination. And I can't complain. I'm kind of digging the Ravens right now. There's no
This is
doubt
their
about
year.
it.
This is the absolute year at the Bengals injuries. I mean, coming to the season, it felt like the Ravens, like every year, are just like a sleeping giant. But right now, Lamar is doing something even without the elite weapons. Zay Flowers is very good, but you look at that MVP season, I can't help but kind of criticize myself because I was one of the people that's critical of Lamar. He missed a lot of time in the offseason. He was his own agent. That wasn't why I was critical. But a lot of people did not think the Ravens should open up that blank check role. And I think you might have been one of them too. There's no shame in that. But Lamar has shown with probably the worst supporting cast of weapons throughout the last 5 years, he is the ultimate example of a quarterback, alongside Justin Herbert, I would say, that has done so much with so little. You think back to the MVP season, he did that with Willie Snead, Miles Boykin, Hayden Hurst, and then Mark Andrews as his top wide receivers. And it seems extending off of that success right now with really only Zay Flowers being his high-level starter, reliable go-to man, making it work with Isaiah Likely. Like I said earlier, Gus Edwards has been their third most explosive receiver at times at the backfield. I think we all owe him an apology because he is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And if you have that with the amount of Pro Bowl material, defensive players, the breakouts, that side of the ball, the pass rush, they lead the league this year in sacks. They don't have an alpha. It's because Mike McDonald has done a tremendous job. And Todd Monken, too. Todd Monken has done, what's up with that face?
Jadeveon Clowney's an alpha.
He's having an alpha season, but not last year. Damn right it was not last year.
If he's having an alpha season, you can count on him to be alpha. He's an alpha this year.
And no one expected that. He's having that type of season, but no one viewed him that way coming in. He's having his best year since 2018. But last of all, but definitely not least, Todd Monken has come in, and he was a guy from an air raid offense with the Buccaneers, and he's been able to shapeshift alongside Lamar, and that has been the X factor, the unsung hero in all their success.
I mean, Justin Matabuki was not viewed as that guy before the season. Kyle Hamilton, we thought he was great, but he's played like the best safety in the league this year. Nobody viewed him as the best safety in the league. So I'm just saying, if you're playing like an alpha this year, you got alphas on your team. Matabuki, Jadeveon Clowney, they got some guys on the defensive line that create havoc.
So just to go back full circle, Lamar Jackson, 100%. This is one of the best stories of the season because I thought it'd be last year. Unfortunately, he gets injured, but here we are this year. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, you go with Mark Andrews going down early or just throughout the season. Mark Andrews gets injured. You lose 2 of your running backs in Dobbins and Keaton Mitchell. It just does not matter. Lamar Jackson is the system of this offense. He's going to do what Lamar Jackson's going to do. He's going to evade pressure in the pocket. He's going to continue to expand plays and make plays with his legs, getting outside the pocket, making throws. He's confident in himself, and he's showing his most confident version of himself this season. So 1,000% to the teams that weren't interested in Lamar Jackson, foolish. You got to know his work ethic. You got to know the player that is Lamar Jackson when he's on the field, when he's 100% healthy. very few quarterbacks in the National Football League. And honestly, you could say nobody in the National Football League has the skill set of Lamar Jackson. He is one of one for his skill set at the quarterback position. For nobody to be interested is mind-boggling to me. The Panthers were willing to trade 2 firsts for Bryce Young, and I get it. The money wouldn't have been the same as opposed to what you would have offered Lamar Jackson, but you were more willing to bet on someone who hasn't shown you anything in the National Football League as opposed to someone who's been an MVP in this league. To me, that's just where you kind of lose me. And I'm a Bryce Young fan. For them to go out and not put a little bit of confidence into someone that's been able to have the success that he's had in the National Football League leaves me questioning what's going on in the minds of these front offices. But Lamar Jackson continues to amaze, and it's been awesome to see him ball out this year.
I don't know if it's just you guys, but I was very excited to see former 3rd overall pick Sam Darnold play out there for the 49ers. Brock Purdy went out. He had a little dinger, right? And, Sam Darnold had a great drive. I mean, Sam Darnold looked like USC. I was like, whoa, am I watching 2017 college football? I thought Sam Darnold was that good. And then the turnover later in the game,
and the sack before, too.
It reminded me, this is USC Sam Darnold. But I mean, after that drive, when Brock Purdy went up to Kyle Shanahan, they showed the camera angle, and he basically asked Shanahan, is he coming in the game? And Shanahan held his play sheet, and he said, buddy, you're out. You've been stinking up the place. You've been sticking up the joint this game. We're gonna let Sammy ride out. Oh man, if Sam Darnold would have scored a touchdown on the second drive he was on, and they would have brought it down to a 1-possession game, we might have been having a quarterback controversy, fellas. I don't know how you feel about that. Sam Darnold had some wheels on him.
You would have been trying to create a quarterback controversy.
Yeah, he had some wheels on him until he ended the game the same way that Brock Purdy kind of played throughout the entire game. I mean, that was turning the ball over. He definitely had some good moments. I think Deebo Samuel had a great play to extend the drive also. You mentioned that early on, John. I definitely will give credit where only 6 throws all season. Sam Darnold comes in, has to run the hurry up. He comes in, he plays some solid football, makes you think, hey, do the Niners have a chance to win this one? But then, unfortunately, reality comes back down, and he throws an interception. Of course, the Niners end up losing this game. No quarterback controversy. But it's funny to hear you bring it up, of course, every single time, because I know that was your scolder before the season started. But Brock Purdy very much clears Sam Darnold still, and that shouldn't be a question.
It is crazy with all the backups we've seen this year. The 2 backups Joel's been vying for are Jarrett Stidham and Sam Darnold. And there's like the only 2 backups in the NFL who haven't actually gotten the opportunity.
And they're the better ones. That's the thing. They're the better ones. We got to give them an opportunity.
Darnold gets the bad rap for sure.
Sam Darnold, I think, am I out of line for saying that he could be successful in this offense? Not as successful as Purdy. Maybe
it could be a spot starter.
Maybe the passer rating isn't number 1, but I mean, can you give me top 10? Can you give me? Will Sam Darnold have a top 10 passer rating in the league with this offense? I mean, come on, let's be serious.
Here's the thing: Sam Darnold's better than Aiden O'Connell. We're seeing Aiden O'Connell go out there and play some winning football at times. Not a great quarterback, right? I mean, Aiden O'Connell's not. You wouldn't say he's not horrible, but he's not great. He's not good. He's like kind of just a spot starter like you just used, John. At the same time, that's what Sam Darnold could be, especially with the weapons that are over there in San Francisco. Yeah, it's not a knock to say that to Brock Purdy by any means. But what you do have to at least say is that Brock Purdy is going to be better than what Sam Darnold will produce. That's all you – as long as you say that, I'm okay with you saying Sam Darnold can have success. That's fine.
Sammy boy. What about in Denver? Maybe Sam Darnold.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Maybe with the coaching, because his coaching's been the worst in the NFL, Darnold, ever since he came in.
What pisses me off is that Russ only unleashes when backs are against the wall. We kind of just got to do whatever. It's just all on Russ. Hey, just go make a play for us. And then suddenly he's back to Seattle, Russ, and we're back in this game. And then let me not get ahead of myself, man. We're not here to talk about the Broncos.
No.
Let's move on.
So I have this report. This is a report from ESPN, March 28, 2023 in the offseason about Lamar Jackson. On Tuesday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the San Francisco 49ers, and Detroit Lions joined the Washington Commanders, New York Jets, and Carolina Panthers as teams that have stated they will not pursue Lamar Jackson.
Ridiculous.
New York Jets They were honed in on Aaron Rodgers. I can excuse that a little bit, even though if it's Lamar, if it's Aaron, I would have rather Lamar, no doubt. Carolina Panthers, they traded up for the first overall pick to go get Bryce Young, but they should have never been vocal and not wanted Lamar.
For sure.
The Washington Commanders, they brought in Jacoby Brissett. They had Sam Howell. They should have never been vocal and not wanted Lamar. And then the Detroit Lions, they have Jared Goff. You understand that. The 49ers, they had Brock Purdy. You can understand that. And the Buccaneers, we could have been ridiculing them right now, but I mean, Baker Mayfield has had a pretty damn good
They're
season.
the one team who's made out okay. But you look at all those GMs, a lot of them are going to lose their jobs soon. I mean, Washington, New York, because they don't have a quarterback, and that's the biggest thing.
I think Washington tried to make the smart move, whether, hey, if Sam's our guy, we got our quarterback, we're still going to pay him nothing as opposed to a Lamar. And then, hey, we're going to lose a lot of games this year. We're going to be in contention to get one of these high-end quarterbacks. Right now, it's seeming as if they have a chance to do that. So I'm not looking at the Commanders as full-blown idiots, but it could end up that way if they don't have a top 2, top 3 pick by the end of the season.
So those 6 teams that I mentioned to you were the 6 teams reported that day. There were 10 teams total that expressed interest in not wanting Lamar. The 6 teams I mentioned to you, the Falcons were one of them, the Seahawks, the Colts, and the Patriots. Those were the other 4.
Not great.
One-third of the league right there.
Especially when you know what's happening over there with a lot of those teams. Lamar Jackson would immediately make them at least the idea of the playoffs comes to those franchises' mind.
Now, before we're going to rank these AFC and NFC teams, we're going to talk about the Chiefs because they lost today on Christmas. The offensive struggles continue. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. There's no doubt. And if Drew wants to talk about them and he wants to go all in and just talk about them, he can. So I won't say too much about the Chiefs. I really just want to say, what a job by Antonio Pierce. What a job that he's done. Beating the Chiefs on the road 20-14. The Raiders are 5-4 in games coached by Antonio Pierce this season. They have beaten the Chiefs on the road. The other games, not so impressive. I think it's 4-3. The Giants, the Jets, and the Chargers were the other ones. So Antonio Pierce is 4-3 in games that he's coached this year for the Raiders. I feel like it's just something about Antonio Pierce. If the Raiders don't keep him for the head coaching position, I don't know if any interim coach ever is going to have any optimism and hope that they could land a head coaching position when they take over. Because Antonio Pierce has turned the Raiders into a top 10 defense, beat the Chiefs on the road, a divisional opponent. Their defense was the reason they won this game. They put up 20 points, but 2 of those were defensive touchdowns. Aidan O'Connell had less than 100 yards passing in this game. Yep. Top 10 defense since he's taken over. Aidan O'Connell is playing okay. He's playing okay for a rookie. And the culture that this guy's instilled, their defense is flying around. The players are bought in. And that 4-3 record, there's one been there against the Chiefs. The other ones were against the Jets, Giants, and Chargers. But those losses have been competitive. Versus the Dolphins, they lost, but they barely lost. And Aidan O'Connell had 3 interceptions in that game. It came down to 1 possession. Their defense held that Dolphins offense in check. Antonio Pierce is the man for the job. And listen, if it doesn't work out long-term, I'm fine with them taking the gamble on bringing him back because he's deserved his spot.
John, do you want to go?
Yeah.
You want to go talk about the Raiders? Go ahead.
They needed this. They needed this badly. And that's a culture setter. But the one thing, which is probably the reason why I just don't think the Raiders, knowing them, are going to retain him, which I would, is because it is the interim energy playing a role in this. We saw when Rich Bisaccia came in, the job he did, which was very nice. And you do have to wonder with interim head coaches, the science behind how much of it is them versus how much of it is the coaching change itself, moving on from Josh McDaniels, who all the players hated completely. That is where I get hung up, where it's like, will this sustain next year and the year after? I wonder. That's going to be the bigger question to me for an assistant head coach that's an interim long term.
Them not keeping Rich Bisaccia was a huge mistake. I hope they learn from their mistakes now and do decide to keep Antonio Pierce, who's come in and given them such a huge boost to this squad. Just McDaniels was killing every single vibe in that locker room. Antonio Pierce has come in. These players want to play for Antonio. He's a great leader of men, and he goes out there and he beats the Kansas City Chiefs.
First
I
time
don't even
scoring
like
point.
the Raiders. Be honest with you, fuck them. But you know what? Today, Christmas Day, they did something that I loved. It was beautiful. It was a Christmas gift to me. Let's go out there and let's beat the Kansas City Chiefs' ass. Let's make their offense look like they've looked essentially all season long. My main concern about the Chiefs has been the same for weeks now. It's not about Mahomes. We know he's still the best in the game. Andy Reid, an amazing offensive play caller. Travis Kelce, yes, he may not be the Travis Kelce we've seen these last few years for where he has a Hall of Fame resume. He's just been, of course, a little bit more banged up as opposed to seasons past, but they don't have the personnel on the offense to go out there and play like the Kansas City Chiefs that we've seen in year past. And even last year where they didn't have the most amazing supporting cast. They just had a healthier Travis Kelce. And whether you like to admit it or not, Juju Smith-Schuster was just good enough to go out there and elevate or just, of course, give them that boost on the outside that they needed. Some type of security blanket there. You don't realize that an average to, I guess you could go slightly above average, Juju Smith-Schuster. I'll stay average. Could mean this much to the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And again, it's not indicative on Mahomes, whether you guys want me to hate on him or not. I'm just happy they're losing. And I'm happy that he's going out there and losing games. I'll never root for the Kansas City Chiefs. But what has to be true is that it's not just on Mahomes. It's not just on Reid. It's just the fact that this offense simply lacks talent. It's not a Mahomes thing, not a Reid thing. It's a Kansas City Chiefs offense issue. Until they go and get personnel, which has to be in this offseason, I'm not looking at this team as a contender this season. Yes, you have Mahomes. He'll always give you a puncher's chance, sure, but it hasn't been the case this season so far. In situations where Mahomes finally has that opportunity, hey, it's a drive. You're Mahomes. This is what we live for. This is our bread and butter. We couldn't ask for anything more. They've just fallen a little bit short, and whether that's on Mahomes, not really, because there's been situations he's put balls right on his receivers, but also you're Mr. Mahomes. You got to be perfect. This is the chosen one. This is the guy that everyone says is untouchable, best quarterback they've ever seen. There's got to be a little bit of responsibility there. All trolling aside, Kansas City Chiefs losing was pretty sad to see if you're a Chiefs fan, but great if you're every other fan in sports. Kansas City has to be better. Who knows if they will, but let's hope not.
You know, Kansas City, the frustration is real. There's no doubt that the frustration is real. Mahomes is frustrated. Travis Kelce is frustrated. You saw a video of him slamming his helmet on the sideline. This team is frustrated. There are still some things at play here, which makes this team not a lost cause for me. Number one, Mahomes could be playing so much better. There were a lot of dropbacks in this one where there was so much time in the pocket, whether the protection was holding up or Mahomes bought a lot of time. And I'm thinking to myself, is everybody really not open? Like, is there nothing available? Like,
Right.
maybe on some plays, but is it happening as often as the TV broadcast and announcers would like you to think? I don't think so. I rewatched the Packers game that on primetime weeks ago, and I thought Mahomes missed a lot of throws in that one. He didn't attempt a lot of throws that I thought were throws that he should have attempted. Mahomes is the best quarterback that I've ever seen. That's a fact.
Oh, Lord.
From what I've seen from him, like you said, it is the fair standard for him. I expect him to be perfect. I expect him, like last playoffs when he rolled his ankle and was still able to hobble his way to the Super Bowl. I seen him play with perfection. I seen him in the Super Bowl. A big reason why I said he played better than Hurts was because Mahomes was perfect in the Super Bowl. There wasn't a drive that he wasn't pinpoint precise. Mahomes could be playing so much better. Travis Kelce, has he lost a step? We're not sure. We'll see come playoff time. And I feel like there's still a bag of tricks that Andy Reid has that he hasn't used yet. So those are the things that I'm hoping for. But let's say worst case scenario. Worst case scenario this season, the Chiefs get eliminated. Whether in the wild card, divisional, AFC championship, it doesn't matter. This is the first year they're not going to win 12 games since Mahomes has started at quarterback. Let's say they get eliminated, they don't go back, whatever. Everybody that's downplaying and laughing at the Chiefs and trying to laugh at their downfall, I understand the reasoning, and Mahomes has won so much. But need I remind everybody that this team just won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. The mountain that people wanted Mahomes to climb and prove himself, he already did that. And by the way, this will be the last season Mahomes will have this little help on the outside, because just how Brett Veach rebuilt the offensive line after the Chiefs lost in the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers when he signed Joe Tooney and drafted Creed Humphrey and I'm forgetting his name, and Smith, I think it's Trey Smith, and Trey Smith, he's going to draft a receiver, another one. He's going to go out and sign a receiver who can actually help this team now. Rashee Rice will be the third, fourth option next year.
Oh,
that's
goodness.
the amount of talent they're going to be bringing in, because I think Kelsey's going to be top 2, and they should bring in another player that's better than Rashee. So I think Rashee should be the third option next year. I like Rashee, but he should be the third option next year. This is going to be the last year Mahomes is playing with this little talent. What they're doing this year with him is a disservice. They should have never came into the season with this little receiver. Ridiculous.
Like you said, we could say that, yeah, they could have brought him a little bit more help. Fine. But at the same time, you're Patrick Mahomes. You did it last year with a mediocre supporting cast. Remember when we were talking about MVS looking like Reggie Wayne in the AFC Championship game? Remember that? That's because of the powers of Mahomes. You were expecting it to translate today. It didn't happen. You're expecting it to translate all season long. We haven't seen it on a consistent basis. It's just something that you just have to be open and honest about. He's not elevating these guys the way that we saw last year. But again, we could put this hand in hand with, hey, you don't have the same guys. Sure, you're relying on a rookie wide receiver as your number one option at the wide receiver. That's how I interpreted your statement. But you're right. It should be Kelsey. It should be another guy that's a notch above Rashee, and then Rashee being that third option. That's a very fair statement. But Rashee hasn't been bad by any means this year. He's actually been one of the great bright spots of this team. Last 3 of the 5 weeks, he's gotten into the end zone. Mahomes, I think he's just trying to play a little bit too much hero ball, holding on the ball a little bit too long, and just not trusting his guys the way that we've seen, because there's been a lack of consistency on their part, mostly by MVS and Kadarius Toney, 2 guys that can't hold on to the ball. But get out of your own head, Mahomes. You've made a living off trusting your guys and making plays that other guys can't. You got to be better. If you're not going to play at the standard that you've set for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Chiefs fans and football fans all around the world, the Kansas City Chiefs will not be competing for the Lombardi at the end of the season.
At the end of the day, they're going to be just fine, because we can get our jokes out now. They're going to have a first and second round pick in one of the deepest wide receiver classes. This year, there's like 10 different guys that are going to go in the top 70, but the other part, too, is they have cap space. They can add a guy like Kendrick Bourne, Marquise Brown. They could swing for the fences, because there are reports they tried against the A.J. Brown sweepstakes. But there's also other pieces as well coming in. Rashee Rice is better than Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju is a great fit for the offense. A big loss has been last year. Jerick McKinnon was fantastic. This year's played a smaller role. Maybe Eric Bieniemy being gone plays a smaller role in that, and that makes a big difference. McKinnon had 9 touchdowns last year. Juju had 3. There's also another aspect, too. It's that I'm somewhat blanking here. McCole Hardman, the team added him at the trade deadline. He is better than Kadarius Toney. So to have him in there as well with Rashee and 1 or 2 additions, it's going to open up a lot. But I think the big mistake they didn't know with Juwan Taylor that the NFL is going to really enforce their offsides, or whatever you want to call it, penalty early in the year. If they use that $80 million at a more expendable tackle, they would have more flexibility to sign a wide receiver. I think that's just the one misstep they've had in the process. Do we have Joel? Let's see.
Mr. Moran.
I agree with you. Now, I would love to continue this show going. I'm going to read some super chats, and then I'm going to end off the show here because my Wi-Fi is getting really choppy. So this is from Caleb Bates. How far are the Raiders from contending?
A quarterback away.
You need a quarterback. You need that franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, weren't able to get Anthony Richardson that I'm sure a lot of teams wanted, but you need a quarterback. Without a
Sure.
quarterback, you can't win anything.
You see the reports that their GM Ziegler wanted CJ Stroud, but Josh McDaniels insisted that Jimmy Garoppolo was the guy. That they thought Stroud
I
was a
saw it.
generational prospect. But you
Yeah.
know what? The Raiders' biggest thing is they have so much talent offensively. Zamir White was great today. The offensive
Hell
line
yeah.
was better. The tackle position is big time. Colton Miller at left. And to see the defense coming together with Max Crosby being one of those top 5 edge rushers, it's probably going to take some time, of course, with the Texas Tech edge rusher, Tyree Wilson. They get a quarterback, they're going to be a wild card team as soon as that happens, quite frankly. But they're also going to need a coach too. And that's why I believe currently with Antonio Pierce, he could be that culture setter if they want to keep Devontae and try to continue competing and building, just opposed to rebuilding, retooling, trading all these stars because they've got more than a handful.
I don't think they're that far off. And Antonio Pierce, for all the things that you mentioned about the energy of an interim head coach, I actually think it's very difficult to come in that position because it's a staff that you didn't pick. It's guys that you're going to have to just trust to do a role, and you don't know to what effectiveness they're going to do it. You don't know any of these guys. So I think Antonio Pierce, knowing that it's his team and getting to bring in his people into the building and fulfill his vision will ultimately help the Raiders in the long term if they decide to keep him. But I don't think this team is that far off. I think Kuntz has really developed his pass rusher. Crosby's one of the better ones. Getting Jack Jones has made a huge difference. I think they've needed a stout corner, and he's been that. So I think this team is not that far off. RJ team goes Brunson, best guard in the East, by the way.
Listen, all I'm going to say about this is when I brought his name up in terms of one of the better shooters in the world, I was kind of scoffed at. One of the only players in basketball shooting over 45% on the attempts that he's put up there. He's been sensational from three-point land. He's just been unbelievable as a scorer. Huge win against Milwaukee, and Brunson continues to be, like you said, I don't know if I'll go best guard, but most definitely one of the best, arguably top 3 in the East.
He's top 3. Trae Young, Tyrese, Brunson, whatever order you want to have it.
Yep.
I do think Brunson is probably 3rd in that order, regardless of how you slice it. But he is one of the best guards in the East. There's no doubt about it. Santos goes Lamar MVP, and Tua is booty cheeks.
I don't think Santos wants to be on this side of history with Tua being booty cheeks, because I think he sees the way that I treat Joel, River Brown at times because of his inconsistencies. Mr. Tortorelli at the bottom. If he wants to be added to that list, I'm more than happy to oblige by giving him that same energy. Lamar MVP, I'm not mad at it. Not even a little bit. He's been awesome.
And this the last one, Joey Valdez goes, I was at the Chiefs game and Mahomes was unwilling to throw to his open receivers, almost like he doesn't trust them. GG Raiders.
He does not trust them.
I think this is the biggest thing at play.
Justin Watson's the number 2 wide receiver. Can you blame him?
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. But I can't wait to rewatch that game back because I think Mahomes will be playing a lot better. But this is going to do it for this episode of the Joe Moran Show. Want to thank Drew and John Tortorelli for joining me. Next episode of Pick a Side will be Wednesday. So not Tuesday. It will be Wednesday. And Riv will be back. So we'll have the full gang on the podcast. Hopefully my Wi-Fi isn't as choppy, but, can't count on that. We got one last super chat, and I think this is for you, John. What do you feel like the Steelers should do at quarterback next season? Merry Christmas, by the way, guys.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Chrysler.
The biggest thing is getting an offensive coordinator and giving Kenny Pickett a 3rd year, then upgrading the second backup quarterback. I would keep Mason Rudolph around, but if they can get a Jacoby Brissett or a Justin Fields for a 3rd-round pick, an early 3rd-round pick, you've just got to upgrade the level of talent and be aggressive in the quarterback room because that's what's going to push Kenny Pickett. I know you guys scoff, but Pickett kind of reminds me a bit of Alex Smith and Derek Carr in some aspects. And I think you can get yourself more than average quarterback on a rookie contract. That's what's going to allow them to build out a more complete roster. So I think they still could pick it for 1 year, give them a fair opportunity to evaluate, and ultimately just upgrade the number 2 spot alongside Mason Rudolph.
And that's going to do it for this episode.
You're good.
Happy Merry Christmas to everybody. Make sure you guys have a great night's sleep. Hopefully you guys ate good. That's going to do it for us on this podcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.